Well, good morning, everybody. How's that volume, Don? Good? Good. I have hearing aids, so sometimes I hear myself a little louder than I'm speaking. So, I could be like whispering to you for an hour. No, I don't want to do that. Well, I don't know about all of you, but I have talked to a lot of people in the last week or so, and some are very happy and some are very sad. Some are really afraid and some are really confident, all because of the changes in politics in our country. And generally we don't even mention that, but it seems like this week I wanted to talk not so much about the politics of the politics, but about how as intense thoughts and emotions come up, and when they come up, how do we bring them to the path? How do we actually work with this stuff for the benefit of ourselves and for the benefit of everybody? So I'm going to endeavor to do that. As you might imagine, for all the walls and walls of Dharma books that are on all the walls and walls of Dharma libraries, there are very few that actually address this subject. So to a degree, I have to confess, I'm winging it a little bit. And I also would like it if any of you feel like talking about how you're experiencing things and how you're working with those experiences, I think could be really helpful. Helpful is the operative word for my whole talk, actually. My tendency is to notice, what I'm going through, notice my feelings, thoughts, my experiences, bring them to my meditative practice and see what comes up. And one of the things that came up most powerfully for me was that I have a kind of almost knee-jerk tendency when something happens, good, bad, or indifferent, to kind of label it, judge it, this is good or this is bad, this is saintly or this is evil, and this is acceptable or this is unacceptable. And what I found was all of those judgments are not very helpful. And the reason they're not very helpful is that as soon as I have one, say I think to myself, oh, this is really bad, then I'll immediately tell myself a story about why it's really bad, and then I'll fall into that story. And if it's really bad, I'll get unhappy. And when I get unhappy, well, I don't have a dog to kick, you know what I mean. All of a sudden, my home life is affected by that energy, and it becomes kind of a way of introducing negative emotions into the whole world, and I'm doing it. So my new point of discernment, if you will, isn't good or bad, right or wrong. It's helpful or unhelpful. Is what's happening here helpful? Or is it unhelpful? If it's unhelpful, how can I respond to it? If it is helpful, how can I participate in it? And that becomes more like what's critical. Now, it's not just so easy to do that, really, because we all have we're hardwired with fight or flight stuff and reactions to things based on our own past histories and what we think. And so in times when intensity arises, I think it's critical that we also turn up the, shall I say, commitment we make to ourselves to uncover our own sacred truth, our own Buddha nature. Because the very thing that obscures Buddha nature, that real goodness inside of us, is in fact those things, those judgments, those prejudices, those labels, and all that. So the sooner we can notice them and just let them go without judgment, we may be able to cultivate some insight into what could be helpful. And that's it. That's sort of the way of the bodhisattva. I know that's a kind of a Buddhist word. Is everybody familiar with that word, bodhisattva? It really means, bodhi is awakened mind. And the thing that we become awake to is really that we already have what we seek. We already have the exact same nature as Buddha, which means awakened one, right? We have it. It's just obscured, it's covered over. So Bodhi is awakened mind, and Sattva actually means warrior. Isn't that nice? Yeah. So it's like, this is the one thing worth really striving for, struggling for if necessary. That's why, even though we like to read these serene things, for instance, where somebody goes on retreat, and especially in an American kind of retreat where you get aromatherapy and hot rocks and luxurious food and all that, and you basically are living in some kind of paradise for a minute. There are those kind of retreats. But when you look at our teachers, the folks with the pictures back here, and also the ones that historically are really the roots and the foundation of this whole lineage of Dharma teaching, they didn't worry about too many hot stones and aromatherapies and, fluffy robes and stuff like that. They'd go find a cave and they'd sit. And caves aren't that comfortable, as you may or may not know. But they would work with themselves, not choosing extreme circumstances, but really choosing solitude so they could watch their mind. It's impractical for us to do that. I mean, I have family, I still work, you all have obligations and stuff, and we don't have a culture that's very supportive or forgiving of people who want to become a cave yogi. That was something supported in a different culture. So what do we do? That's my question. Because while, for instance, in Tibet, in around the year 900, the great Guru Rinpoche, whose picture is back there, brought Vajrayana Buddhism to Tibet and established monasteries and started training people. And it was pretty glorious for about 100 years. Then guess what? Well, that generation died out. Somehow, whatever they did didn't really take root strong enough to keep the old type of monarch away, and they ended up with a really bad guy. I think his name was Lang Dharma, and they call him that because he was just against the Dharma, He didn't want all this connection and sharing to be happening. He wanted to amass great wealth and power for himself, which he did, darn near destroyed Buddhism in Tibet. It's true. And that lasted until, of course, these things, no matter how bad they may be, and that was really bad stuff back then. The accounts are horrible. They're not that many because they're mostly interested in the teachings, not in the history, but it's useful to have some history. So what he did was try to wipe out these teachings of interdependence, that we're all connected. That's really what it was railing against. And at the end, he died, because guess what? That's what people do. And other people came along, and there was more openness because people realized, hey, I may have more money in the bank now because of the way we're thinking about things, but I'm not as happy as my parents or grandparents who were poor. How does this work? Well, at that point, there's what was called the second transmission, which is where this lineage started. It started by the guy with the funny butch haircut on the shrine behind me, a guy named Marpa Lotsawa, who brought the Dharma back to Tibet, established the Kagyu lineage, this lineage, and here we go again. Along the way, there were all kinds of slips. There were monasteries that fought against each other, actually, because they disagreed over teachings and stuff. It's crazy. It's good to read history. You realize if you're feeling like you're in a crazy time, you are, but you're not alone. This has happened before. And it's good also because when you read the accounts of the people who were there, they trusted in the Buddhas and the Dharma and the Sangha and the Bodhisattvas and so forth. And what's that all about? Well, what that's about is these people woke up and they saw interdependence directly. So, in other words, if I was an awakened being, I would literally see my connection to you, each of you. And since we're connected, what could I possibly want beyond your happiness? Because your happiness is my happiness. And that's the Dharma. That's where interdependence is. That's why Sangha, the community of people following the Dharma, is considered one of the jewels of refuge. So all these things, just Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are the foundation for how we get through the kind of times that we have. We're very lucky to even be able to hear those words. Trust me when I tell you, not a lot of people this Sunday morning are talking about interdependence. They're not necessarily talking about the fact that there are teachings to help us experience the openness part of our mind to the point where we can engage with this kind of worldview. And on the one hand, we don't necessarily emphasize a transcendent being that could dump a blessing on our head if whatever came together properly. What we talk about is the fact that Buddha never went away. The Bodhisattvas never went away. They're here now. You might not be able to see them in our current state, but boy, if you can just think about that. What do they want? Well, they want you to wake up. They want you to be happy. They want you to be free of suffering and so forth, right? So we have allies, both visible, with each other. We're Vajra brothers and sisters, as they say, and we need to take care of each other. But also in our own practice, when we engage with our imagination and we just think about awakened beings over the millennia being there and pulling for us. And if we ask them for something, we might not get what we think we need, but we may get what we need. It's important to make the connection. With all that said, that's a long preamble, I know. With all that said, somebody asked me in the middle of the week, what do I do with all of this? I'm really depressed. And she was a Buddhist, so it was easier because we share language, although this idea will work for any human, right? And I said, well, for me, I start with simple shamatha meditation. Always, I start everything with that. I start my day when I get up in my bed with that, you know? I just look at my mind and see what's coming up. Whether it's happy or sad, sacred or mundane, doesn't matter. And I do the thing we all know how to do, you know, where I just rest my awareness on my breath, and as thoughts come up, whatever they are, rather than thinking thoughts about my thoughts and thinking thoughts about that and getting involved in the story, I just let it go. And I find that space, that gap between thoughts, which, if you've ever experienced that little gap between a thought and another thought, you know it's just extraordinary to just be in touch with this open, luminous mind that is always here, always. And from there, I begin with what we all know, the refuge prayer. I think everything we need actually is in that prayer. We elaborate on it and we develop things and all of that, but we start there. And then the four immeasurables, bodhicitta. Bodhi, again, is awakened, citta is mind. And these are simple things. And what they do by touching them again is it gives our mind something reliable and something that's helpful to be in touch with, first thing in the day, first thing. And then from there, the day can unfold, but I'm already in that energy flow of helpfulness. So my recommendation right now, even though I've talked a long time already, is that we actually start this with the refuge prayer. It's on your sheet. And let's just read it in English together 3 times. And each time, just simply think about what these words mean inside of you. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Thank you. So there it is. Usually when we're feeling like things are falling apart, Or if we're feeling like things are going really well, same thing. Why? Well, if we feel like things are falling apart, we've probably taken refuge in something that's falling apart. Something is kind of impermanent. What a surprise. What a surprise, yeah. That was the Buddha's first noble truth, was life contains suffering. He didn't start with, like, hey, come follow me and life won't contain suffering. He didn't say that. And he said, the suffering comes for a reason, and that reason is that we're attached to stuff. Well, if we're attached to something that's coming unglued, yeah, it's going to hurt. If we've taken refuge in that thing that's coming unglued, it's going to hurt a lot. And so we've been given this meditation called refuge, where we can shift gears. That's what this is. It's like, okay, instead of taking refuge in things that fall apart, I'm going to take refuge in something that doesn't fall apart. And you want to really establish your mind in that in the beginning of the day. And then all manner of things are going to happen. Good things, bad things, indifferent things, mundane things, amazing things, all kinds of things. But your relationship to them is automatically changed and transformed because you're no longer thinking that whatever those things are is actually your home. And this is good and important to really establish in a deep way. It helps all of this stuff be workable. The fact that life contains suffering can be workable. It can be workable. But we have to do it. And we have to see things rightly. Seeing things rightly really means seeing that we're connected to everything, and therefore what we think, do, and say matters. That's it. As Lama Kathy often summarizes the Eightfold Noble Path, do no harm, practice virtue all the time, and totally tame your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha didn't teach, I'm going to tame your mind. He didn't teach, Eric's going to tame your mind. The Buddha taught, you tame your own mind. Nobody else can do it, right? So as difficult circumstances come up, on one level, they're difficult circumstances, but on another level, they're our best teacher. This is what really gets us off the couch and into a cave, so to speak, because we realize, I may say these words, that I've taken refuge in enlightened mind, but in terms of the way we react to life and respond to life, maybe not so much, right? And usually we can't see that. This is important. Usually we don't see that we're not really completely in gear because things are going along okay. It's when things start not being okay, we get the energy and the impetus to really look and really see and really work on ourselves. So in that way, our greatest difficulties are our greatest teachers. I have this story here that I wanted to share. It's a Hasidic story. It's from the Jewish tradition. But it holds a lot of the things that we need to hold at this time. It's called the allegory of the long spoons. Has anybody ever heard that before? It goes like this. Legend has it that Rabbi Chaim of Romistock, Lithuania, an itinerant preacher, was granted permission to visit both heaven and hell. Upon his return to earth, he traveled from town to town, sharing his journey. With an angel for his guide, the rabbi is first ushered through the gates of hell, which he is surprised to find are made of finely wrought gold. The gates are exquisitely lovely, as is the lush green landscape that lies beyond them. He looks at the angelic guide in disbelief. He said, "This is beautiful. The sight of the meadows and the mountains, the sounds of the birds singing in the trees, the scent of thousands of flowers, and then the tantalizing aroma of a gourmet meal catches his attention." Entering a large dining hall, he sees row after row of tables laden with platters of sumptuous food. Yet the people seated around the tables are pale and emaciated, moaning in hunger. Coming closer, he sees that each person is holding a long spoon, but that both arms are splinted with wooden slats so that he cannot bend either elbow to bring the food to their mouth. The angel then took the rabbi to heaven, where he encountered the same beauty. Entering the dining hall there, he saw the same scene, except in contrast to hell, the people seated at the tables who had their arms splinted with wooden slats were sitting contentedly, cheerfully, talking with each other as they enjoyed their sumptuous meal. As the rabbi came closer, he was amazed to watch how each person at a table would feed the person sitting across from him. The recipient of this kindness would express gratitude and then return the favor by leaning across the table to feed their benefactor. The rabbi urged his angel to bring him back to hell so he could share this solution with the poor souls trapped there. Racing into the dining hall, he shouted to the first starving person he saw, "You do not have to go hungry. Use your spoon to feed your neighbor, and he will surely return the favor and feed you." The response was, "You expect me to feed the detestable man sitting across the table?" The man said angrily, "I would rather starve than give him the pleasure of eating." It was then that the rabbi understood. Heaven and hell offer the same circumstances and conditions. The only difference is in the way people treat each other. So I think what we need to be doing, this is like really, to me, a dramatically important opportunity to sharpen our awakened mind warriorhood. We get the chance to really grow up here because we need to figure out ways that we're going to take care of each other. It could be small ways. It could be just a smile. It could be just keeping some food in your car so when somebody is begging for food, you can give it to them. It could be working to support a place like this where people are actually going to talk more and more about how we take good care of each other, how we can become helpful. Because helpfulness is the thing that we need to discern. What's helpful? Okay, let's do that. And I know that's not a big dramatic thing to say. It's not like I'm giving you an elevated Dharma talk or something like that, but I think it's that simple. So, as I said, in the morning, I can only tell you what I do as an example because you all know enough stuff. You can, decide what you're going to do. But it's like this. So I get up in the morning. I've been asleep. When I sleep, I really sleep. I'm not like doing dream yoga or something like that. I'm just an ordinary person. And the first thing is, I guess I'm grateful that I woke up at all. It's nice to be alive. But after that, simply finding that openness in my mind, regardless of what I have in front of me. Choosing a simple prayer, like the refuge prayer. Doesn't have to be that one. But it's a good place for me to start because it starts out in the Buddha. Well, for me, imagine that I'm a Buddha to be. I just haven't uncovered that yet. And I also imagine that filling the entire atmosphere I'm in, there are a lot of Buddhas, and they're all there to help me. And so I can talk to them. And I talk to them. Some people call that prayer. I just talk to them. Tell them what's on my mind. That's taking refuge in the Buddha. You're sharing your life with enlightened beings who can be helpful. And by seeing how you're being helped, you can also learn how to be helpful. This is one of the ways we gain skills. And the Dharma, so then taking refuge in the Dharma, the teachings, well, I pick a simple teaching, like the Four Immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and its causes. May all beings be free of suffering and its cause. May all beings remain in joy, free of sorrow. And may all beings be at peace, at equanimity, not holding some close and others far. That's the Dharma. It's called the Four Immeasurables. It was actually a teaching of the historical Buddha called the Four Brahma Viharas, or the Four Abodes of the Gods. And simply by saying those words and thinking about them, it changes the chatter in my mind that's really selfish, because the wish is for all beings, which includes me, to be happy and to be free of suffering in the cause. What's the cause of suffering? Any clinging to an illusory self. That's it. That's what Buddha taught. Why is that suffering? Well, because it's an illusion and it falls apart and we suffer. That's taking refuge in the wrong thing. Take refuge in enlightened mind. All right? So we say, okay, may all beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. Well, may we recognize interdependence, that we're connected to each other, that we can be helpful to each other. That's what that's saying. Then the next one, may all beings remain in joy, free of sorrow. This is interesting. In the original Sanskrit for that word that we translate as joy is mudita. And mudita means sympathetic joy or empathetic joy. The indestructible joy isn't because I had a great meal with my family last night. It was very joyful. I mean, I loved it. But that's not exactly what is being talked about here. Mudita, according to the Buddha, the sympathetic joy is rejoicing in the good fortune of others. Whoa, that attacks so many afflictive emotions right away, like jealousy or anger that somebody's got something that somebody else like me doesn't have, or fear that I'll never achieve whatever. All those things are the things that taint our joy, those negative emotions. What's the best way to cut through that? When I see something good happen to somebody else and being totally happy for them. And even better than that, working to make sure that others, have good fortune. That's the kind of joy that they're talking about. That's the kind of joy that's indestructible. And then equanimity, that fourth piece. As we contemplate that, not holding some close and others distant, I asked myself a question a few years ago, why? Why? I mean, and it turns out the only reason that I would want to hold someone close or push someone away is because I have preferences, I have judgments, I have labels, and none of that has anything to do with whoever that is. It all has to do with the story I'm telling myself in my mind. So this is just another very sharp instrument that we can use skillfully to come to peace and realize that it's our preferences, liking this and not liking that, that actually cause hindrances for ourselves and obscurations for ourselves. So it's dropping that need to be right all the time, that need to label everything as good or bad. When we can drop that, we come to a place where we can be at peace. And when things come up, because we're dropping the thoughts that I love this or I hate that, guess what? What's left? It's just the experience. That's it. Just the experience. And the same mind experiences all of that. And this is what Buddha is trying to wake up in us, is that this open, luminous thing that we call mind is always there. And it doesn't have inherent in it these prejudices and these preferences and all that. So to the degree that we can use our preferences to be helpful, use them. But when you recognize that they're not helpful, well, that's why we practice shamatha. There's a thought there. Just let it go. Just let it go. So in the morning, in about 10-minute time frame, literally, all of that can unfold. And you can see that it kind of sets my mind in a certain direction for the rest of the day. And I can bring that kind of attitude and that kind of thinking into my day. And I wind up, because of the work that I do, having to swim in some shark-infested waters all day long. Because I manage investment portfolios, so I can't just turn off the news because I don't like it. I have to know what's going on, and I have to know why it's going on. And I honestly could come home at night like, but I don't. And it's because of the Dharma. It's not because I'm a great practitioner. I'm not. But doing a little bit every day starting your day that way, taking a break at lunch rather than running off to do this or that or talk to somebody a lot that you don't need to talk to, whatever. Just take a moment, look at your mind, look at your refuge, look at your aspiration for compassion. Holy crap, is that powerful? It's really powerful. And what ends up happening is there's a genuine kind of smile that comes into you and comes from you that is kind of like that reaching across with a long spoon rather than worrying about how I can manage to get this thing I want for myself and I can't get. So anyway, I know this rambled a little bit, and I apologize for that. But I kept getting that question over and over and over again from various people all week. And really, that's my heartfelt answer, is that we have what we need, we just need to use it. We're lucky in that we have what we need. There's this thing that I don't know where it's from. I took a picture of it. It was in a book I was reading, and because I took a picture with my camera, I didn't have a way of making a note from where it is, and I'm old and forgetful, so the sheet looks like that. So this is point 48 from some book, and I want to give attribution, but I don't know where to give it. And it says, "It's thanks to all your injuries that patience you will perfectly achieve. From all such hurts, compassion, love, and other qualities are also born. Your enemies are thus your friends, who, like your teachers, help you to enlightenment. Patiently rely on them with joy and respect." Pretty good advice. I take that along with history, realizing these enemies, so to speak, are impermanent. And they help me to see things that would be invisible to me about myself, about my own reactivity and preferences, which I know are the hindrances in my aspiration to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So they're my friends. I wouldn't see these reactions that I have without them. And once I can see them, I can work with them. I can untangle where they came from, why they're there, and what I can do to remedy that. Rumi, you all know Rumi, great Sufi poet. I'm really mixing some religions here today. He said, well, this was a little conversation. I said, "What about my eyes?" He said, "Keep them on the road." I said, "What about my passion?" He said, "Keep it burning." I said, "What about my heart?" He said, "Tell me what you hold inside it." I said, "Pain and sorrow." And he said, "Stay with it. The wound is the place where the light enters you." I think that's reminiscent of a Leonard Cohen song, too. So I would say, cherish these times. They're going to show you something that you couldn't see if you weren't in them. And there will be a second act, and you will be able to come into it with wisdom and love and compassion if you train in, guess what? Wisdom and love and compassion. But if we train in worry and fear and depression, there will be a change, and what will we have? Worry and fear and depression. I don't know about you, but it seems like to the degree we have a choice to learn to work with these things or just kind of sink, it seems like the better choice is to do these simple things for ourselves every day. And certainly will help others. No doubt about that. There's this last line of this one practice that I like to do. That I'd like to end this talk with. And then really, anybody who's got questions, comments, experiences, anything they'd like to share about this rather momentous time we're going through, please come to the question mic. So this is, this practice is called summoning good fortune. I mean, who doesn't want good fortune? I love this. His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche taught me this. And the last part of the practice itself says, may I obtain the empowerment of openness, free from fixation. Right there, that's the whole thing. I just spent like 20 minutes saying what he said in one sentence. Just because our preferences are telling us we don't have what we want, or we have what we don't want, or anything like that, those are our fixations. What we're seeking is actually arises naturally when we create the conditions of being free of fixation. So, may I obtain the empowerment of openness, free from fixation, which naturally liberates dualistic propensities, fancy words. Dualistic propensities just means you don't see the connection. There's me and you, that's dualism, or me and whatever object I'm experiencing, that's dualism, right? And the propensity is to see ourselves as individual units that are being affected one way or another by all the other individual units of things. What Dharma's teaching us is really it's all connected. And when we create the causes and conditions for whatever we are aspiring to arise, like enlightenment or wealth or whatever, create the causes and conditions, it will happen because it's all connected. So we want to liberate this open mind space from dualistic propensities. And then he goes on, may I obtain the empowerment of immortal life, which is the unchanging expanse of awareness. It's interesting. Awareness, no matter what the conditions or causes you're experiencing, what's always there? Awareness. You wouldn't know it was there if you weren't aware of it. And awareness is what? It's always open. It's always empty because it fits that into it. It allows all this stuff to arise that arises from causes and conditions. That's what it is. So, a lot jam-packed into this few sentences. And awareness, in that sense, is immortal, never changes. And then lastly, this is the zinger for me. May I obtain the empowerment of awakening within one lifetime, which is the endless accumulation of merit. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that's a zinger. May I obtain the empowerment of awakening within one single lifetime, which is the endless accumulation of merit. In other words, being helpful. That's how we accumulate merit, as we figure out that we can feed the person across the table. Of course, that's an allegory. You fill in the blank about how you will do that. So it's my deep hope that we as a community can find ways of taking good care of each other and taking good care of others. And we do a little bit. I mean, there's right now a drive going on, I don't know if you've seen it in the newsletter, collecting warm clothes so that we can give them to homeless shelters. That's a big deal. Find something in your closet and bring it. Find something that'll keep somebody warm. Carry some food in your car that you can give away. I'm thinking maybe don't give money, because sometimes money gets used for things that aren't helpful. But food's always helpful. I have a friend a long time ago used to carry warm socks. Real nice socks. And when he saw somebody who didn't have a home, that's what he would give them, because everybody always needs nice socks, warm socks. It's the thing that people want. When your feet are cold and wet, that's the thing you want more than anything. Think about those things and build your life around those simple things that you can do. And then whatever else comes up that's interesting to you, that's helpful, of course. Don't limit yourself, but make it something real, tangible and real. Make your meditation in the morning when you get up tangible and real. A good meditation is one that you did. Don't judge your meditation. Just get up and do it. You know, I think we have, in Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, we have all kinds of bells and smells and pictures, and it's very elaborate. That's helpful to me. It's not helpful to everybody, but you know, every morning I get up and I fill my shrine bowls and I take refuge again. I do it again and again all day long. So even if I'm not feeling good, even if I didn't get enough sleep, or I partied too hard the night before, or whatever, fill in the blank, I'm mad at somebody, regardless, I fill those shrine bowls and I make offerings and I take refuge. And by having that pattern in my life, guess what? My mind says, oh yeah, I remember, I get it again. Okay, I get it now. The Dharma, it's not that we fill the shrine bowls because if we don't, some like Buddha is going to come and smack us around and say, hey, fill your shrine bowls. No, it's not that. It's the act of doing it opens up our own mind in a certain way to engage with our own experience in a certain way. So it's all very helpful. Choose the things that you want to do and do them. Do them a lot. So anyway, that's what I've been thinking. If anybody has some comments or questions, I would love to hear from you all.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Jimmy. It's my first time here.
Well, welcome.
Excuse me. Though I've been watching online. So I guess I was thinking about this talk, and kind of like what you're saying is when we come across a bad are perceived as bad thing. We have like an emotional response immediately.
Yeah.
And then we tend to let our emotions immediately into the driver's seat to say whatever logical thing they think is logical. But in reality, the practice of that moment in between thought is to say, is my reaction to this going to benefit me in any way? So as not to expend energy on something that's not going to benefit you. And I don't know, definitely a lot of what I've been thinking with what's going on is, there's a certain amount of like resistance, you want to feel necessary, but I also have been just thinking a lot about like not spending all of my time. Like I want to spend time creating something. I want to, and I've just had this thing in my head, like let them find you working. Like whatever they're doing, that you don't need to, that's whatever. It's whatever it is, it's happening. Your thoughts aren't changing it, but what you create does change that. You are creating something that's gonna stand. And so like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just where my head is, like more creation, like in the face of adversity to create is like a strength in a way.
It sounds wonderful. Yeah. Creativity inspires and entertains and generally helps, I think. It requires curiosity and it requires all kinds of other good qualities too that actually are of great benefit to you and to others. So yeah, I'm all for that. If you can do it, that's wonderful.
Thanks.
And welcome aboard.
I'm Josh.
Oh, hi, Josh.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much. That was very, I got a lot out of that. A
Well,
lot.
thank you for saying that.
No, I'm serious. It was very good. It was
Yeah.
very, very good. That was pretty much it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I almost never know, and this time, for whatever reason, see, this is the weird thing about feelings. I was feeling a little bit like, I don't know, that. But I still showed up and did it. That's the point. It's like practice. But anyway, thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Yeah, this was very excellent. When you said the word fixation, that definitely, that's a fitting word. I've been almost compulsively refreshing the news, checking headlines, and it makes me think of, one of the defenses I've had against it was a quote I got from Tara Brach, and I don't know where she got it, but where attention goes, energy flows. That's a really powerful one. And I made it my lock screen, but guess what? It doesn't always stop me from fixating.
Right.
But I think this framework that you've given of not good or bad, but helpful or unhelpful is a really powerful way to follow that up because I'll label the fixation as bad.
Right.
And guess what? That doesn't help either. So it's a new way. And it also makes me think of another Rumi quote about, I don't know the exact one, but going beyond the fields of good and bad and beyond concept. So I guess what I'm saying is this has been a wonderful talk for sort of, filling in the puzzle, I guess, of things that I'm trying to do to protect my attention and my mind and my energy.
Yeah. The word mantra means protection for the mind. That's the translation from Sanskrit. And that's another thing. I mean, if you find yourself attracted to a mantra, if they're holy, they're holy. I don't understand their power or their holiness, but they are powerful and holy. And if you have that, it can help protect your mind. What it does is something happens. You're going to have, we all have fight or flight stuff going on. Our brains work that way. And then when we decide whether it's possibly frightening or attractive, then we tell ourselves a story about it, and then we get fixated on that story. We decide that's reality. Of course, none of that is true. But if a mantra is happening, so like if you're just mani padme hum, and just internally, it kind of gives you a little gap, which actually helps do what you're talking about doing. And things don't attach to that initial reaction quite as easily if you have a mantra going. The first time I ever saw Ram Dass was like 74. And he was so generous. I mean, he spent like 4 or 5 hours with us, just leading chants and talking and doing stuff. And then at the end he said, you know, I can see that all of you are blissed out and had a really good time, and I'm glad about that. He said, but for me, nothing really happened except my mantra was going the whole time. Interesting, huh? I just remember that. And I think much later when I finally came to this, and I learned a little more about mantra, I thought, oh, okay, I see what he was doing there. And it's a good skill to have.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Okay, so you were talking about at the beginning, people reacting with, happiness and confidence, other people reacting with sadness. I'm one of those that reacts with anger because it's like, what can I do? I got to get up, I got to do something. I get frustrated, and I just sit there in my own stew, and it gets worse and worse. So I came across, I was messing around on social media, and I came across a quote. Pete Buttigieg was addressing a group of students in Michigan. I'm not sure what the context was. I just found the quote. And he said, I did not come here to tell you everything is going to be fine. Mm-hmm. Everything is not going to be fine. You know everything's never been fine. Mm-hmm. And if you think through our lifetimes or through history, things that are most compelling, most inspiring, most choice-worthy are the differences that have been made in the most difficult circumstances or the confrontation of the most ugly problem. I think that's kind of what makes all of this work worth doing, which is why I'm not discouraged, and I'm not checking out, and I'm not giving up. How can we give up? We don't have the right to give up. All of us have our own reasons for being in this, and all of us have our own reasons for feeling the temptations of being discouraged. Mm-hmm. But if you're not out there doing this work, someone else will be. Wouldn't you rather it be you? So,
great.
There you go.
That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Eric.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. I actually listened to you this time.
Oh, man. That's dangerous.
Is it okay for me to put my own words in some of these texts? Because I hear, different teachers using different words that mean the same. And for example, the equanimity stuff means equality or balance. Mm-hmm. Okay.
What equanimity means is that you're letting go of your tendency, it says in the text, to hold some close and others distant. In other words, your tendency to either grab at something or push something away. So in that sense, that's balance. I just call it peace and contentment. I think the quality that equanimity embodies is contentment, but don't take my word for it. Here's the important part of what you're doing, and you're doing something I think is very important. It's important to read these texts in English because that's what we understand. Or if your native language is a different language, Chinese, say, read it in Chinese. And then contemplate it and really think about, what does this mean? What brings this about? What are the components of this? And that's the way I like to do practice, at least until I get all the way through it like that. Then it's just not rich, and I don't know what's going on, really. But boy, if you can contemplate it, like take that one word because it strikes you and really do a deep dive with it, I think that's the best.
Good.
Yeah, so yeah, good on you. Well, thank you all for participating. I really appreciate that, really do. So on the flip side of our card here, we have the dedication of merit. And as you can gather, the accumulation of merit is the path to enlightenment. The dedication of merit is actually kind of a setup for realization, because that's the acknowledgement of interdependence, that everything's connected. We're not holding on to all this goodness for ourselves here. We're actually sharing it. We're doing the right thing with the long spoons instead of the wrong thing here. So in that spirit, let's just read the dedication of merit together. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samanta Bhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas, that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. Well, thanks, everybody. Happy Sunday to you.